So first step, you need to make a gauge swatch. So the mesh pattern is working like this. So I wrote this drawing, the diagrams, and this little circle, it means chain, and this symbol here means double crochet. And for swatch, we're gonna do 6 mesh stitch. At first, we're starting with 17 chain, and 4 out of this 17, so 17, 16, 15, and 14. This 4 chain is considered as first double crochet plus chain. And after doing 17 chain, you're gonna insert 1 double crochet on 7th stitch. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on 7th chain. And after that, you do 1 chain and skip 1 chain and insert 1 double crochet and chain and skip 1 and so on. And at the end of row 1, you should have 6 mesh stitches. And for me, I just made 6 mesh times 5 mesh, this kind of square. So I'm gonna just measure for this 4 mesh in the middle. So 4 mesh for me is about 3 centimeters. And for the height, again, I will just choose middle. And for 3 mesh, it's about 2.5 centimeters. 4 mesh was about 3 centimeters, and 3 mesh height was about 2.5. And after that, now we wanna know how many centimeters for per mesh. So 3 centimeter divided by 4 mesh equal 0.75 centimeter, which means my gauge is 0.75 centimeter per mesh. And for me, it's from shoulder to shoulder, I wanna set as 42. And as this is a big rectangle, I'm gonna just calculate 42 times 2. So it will be 84 centimeter. So this is your measurement A. And measurement B is basically the length of your poncho. So for me, it's about 33 centimeter. And measurement B is not that important because you can change the height as you go. If you want it to be shorter, you can just finish a little bit early. And if you want it a little bit longer, you can, of course, add more rows. So it's not really a big deal. The important part is measurement A. So before moving on to starting project, I'm gonna explain how to construct this poncho. This is not necessary to watch, but by watching it, it makes your life much easier and it makes it so much easier to work on. So I'm gonna explain very quickly. So normally poncho is constructed with 2 big panels and then sewing 2 seams together. But for this one, this poncho is 1 big rectangle, which is this width would be twice bigger than your shoulder to shoulder length. That's why we've got 42 times 2 equal 84. So for me, this length would be about 84. And this one is measurement B. So we are doing this polka dot pattern, and the widest part of the polka dot is 9 mesh. And in between 2 polka dots, you should have 6 spacing space. So it means 1 repeat is 15 mesh. So after you know your gauge and your measurements, we can calculate the number of total mesh. Ignore this one. That is measurement A divided by centimeter per mesh, which is 84 for me, divided by 0.75, which is from here, and equal to 112. And after this, we can calculate the number of polka dots that we can do in this poncho. So that is this number of total mesh divided by 15. 15 because one repeat is 15 as I explained, and which brings to 7.47. So I'm gonna bring this to 8. You can choose either 7 or 8 if you want a little bit relaxed fit. I recommend you to round up, and if you prefer a little bit tight fit, then I will recommend you to decrease the number to 7. So this is the number of polka dots that I have to do for each row. And after that, you can calculate the final mesh calculation, which is just simply doing 15 times the number of polka dots. For me, it's 8, which brings to 120 mesh. And now we have the number of mesh for each row. And of course, to start the project, we need to start with the chain. So from this number, we can calculate the number of chain. The calculation is 2 times the number of mesh. For me, it's 120 and plus 1, which brings to 241 for me. So this is the number of chain that I have to do to start the project. So now you know all the details, including your measurement and the number of chain. Let's start the project. Slip knot, and after that you do the number of chain you just calculated for. And I recommend you to do them a little bit loose. So now I finished 253 chain. And to start the new row, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this 3 chain is considered as first double crochet, and this 4th chain is considered as chain space. And it's like assuming we already inserted this first double crochet plus chain. So after that, we insert 1 double crochet into 7th stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can see first mesh. And chain 1, skip 1, and insert 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and chain 1, skip 1, and insert 1 double crochet, and you keep doing this until the end of the row, and at the end of the row you should have the total mesh that you calculated. So for me it's 120 mesh. Okay, now I finished first row, so let's move on to next row. And from row 2 to row 5, it's exactly same. We're not gonna go into polka dot pattern yet. So from row 1 to row 5, we are just doing this mesh pattern. And of course, the number of mesh should not change. So for the all rows, it should be all same amount of mesh. So I'm gonna see you guys when I finished row 5. And this is my 4th row. And the last stitch, I just chain 1 and skip 1 and insert your stitch, double crochet into this stitch. This is actually the 3rd chain from start. So this is chain 1, chain 2, and chain 3. Now we finished row 4, and of course if you wanna do 5 mesh row or 3, you can change, but for me I'm gonna do 4 mesh rows before going to polka dot pattern. And to read this chart for 5th row, we are doing normal mesh for twice, and after that we are doing 5 filling square, and after that we're gonna do normal mesh until 17th and so on. And at the end of the row, it's like you go all the way, and at the end of the row it's same as here. Maybe it's hard for you to imagine before working on, so I'm gonna demonstrate and I'm gonna show you how it looks like at the end of the row as well. So let's get started for row 5. So to start row 5, chain 4 as usual. Turn your work. And from the chart you can tell we have 2 meshed stitch, so we're not gonna fill anything, so I'm gonna just do normal meshed stitch for twice, meshed square. Now I finished 2 meshed square, and for the next 5 squares, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're gonna insert 2 double crochet into the chain space plus 1 double crochet on double crochet. So instead of doing chain 1 like normal meshed square, we're gonna insert 2 double crochet into the chain space. So I've done this double crochet, and into the chain space we're gonna insert 2 double crochet. If you think inserting 2 double crochet is too tight, and even with the 1 double crochet into the chain space it will make it tight enough, then you don't need to insert 2 double crochet, and instead of that you can change it to 1 double crochet. But for me, I'm using very thin yarn, 4 ply fingering weight yarn, so I'm inserting 2 double crochet inside to make the stitch more visible. And for the 5th square, I'm gonna do the last double crochet here on double crochet. Now you can tell this filling part is looking like the motif, and this will be the polka dot motif. And after that we're gonna do 10 meshed square, so chain 1, and I just finished 10th mesh square. So now you might be able to see what I meant. And when we are doing the widest part of polka dot, which is 9 mesh of filling, we should have 6 spacing mesh square in between 2 polka dots. And let's say now we are doing 5 square of filling, and when we are doing that we should have 10 mesh square in between them. And when we are doing row 6, let's say we have 7 filling, and in between these 2 polka dots, when we are doing row 6 we should have 8 meshed square in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now we are doing row 5 and we should have 10 mesh square in between 2 polka dots. So next stitch is filling, and we're gonna do this 5 of mesh filling, and after that 10 open square, and so on until you have 7 or 8 polka dots, whatever you calculated. Okay, now I finished 5th row, and as you can see there are 8 mesh here, and as you remember we did 2 open mesh, so whenever we combined like this, the gap between this polka dot, which is the 8th polka dot, and first polka dot, the distance between them is exactly same as the other distance. So this is how it looks like. So now I wrote better version so you can clearly know which direction you're working on. So we just finished row 5, which the start of the row was from here. So you started with 2 open mesh squares, and after that you had 5 filling squares, and after that 10 open mesh squares, and so on all the way to here. So at the end of row 5 you have 8 mesh, and now we are starting row 6. So when we are doing the row 6 or row 8, which is even number rows, the direction of your work would be this way instead of this way, because you are always turning your work when you start new row. So for example, you do chain 4 and turn your work. When you do that, your work is becoming opposite, which means when you're doing even number rows, the direction would be opposite from odd number rows. So now that if you wanna do row 6, you do chain 4 and turn your work, and your first pattern would be this squares over here instead of this one. So which means you should have 7 open mesh at first, and after that you should do 7 filling squares, and after that 8 mesh squares, and so on all the way until you finish the amount of polka dots. So for me, 8 polka dots. And the end of row 6 you should have 1 mesh square. So whenever you combine these 2 pieces here, the amount of mesh squares in between first and last polka dots would be 8, because this 1 square and 7 squares would be combined together and connected. And for row 7, your direction of working would be this way. So you're starting with chain 4 and turn your work, and you're doing 9 filling squares, and after that 6 open mesh and 9 filling squares, and so on until here, and you should end row 7 with 6 mesh. So around row 11 you finish 1 polka dot for row wise, and from row 12 to row 15, before going to this second polka dot rows, you should have same amount of mesh rows as here. So for me, I had 4 rows, so I should have 4 rows as well after completing this polka dot all the way. So I'm gonna see you guys when I finish row 15 and show how the project looks. So now I finished row 15 and I'm in the middle of row 16. So from row 12 to row 15, we didn't do any polka dots pattern. And for row 16, as I told you, our first stitch would be this one and our last stitch would be this one. So we started by doing 1 mesh, which is here, over here, and we had 5 filling, which is same as here, and after that 10 mesh. So 10 mesh, and even though there is only 4 filling, of course there should be one more. It's just because of the number of grids are not enough, but to all the way until the end of the row. And at the end of the row, we should have 9 open mesh, because as you can tell, we have this polka dot and this polka dot. And if you remember from this first cycle, when we only have 5 filling, which is the narrowest part of polka dots, we should have 10 mesh in between 2 polka dots. And we started one row by having 1 open mesh, which means we should end the row with 9 mesh. And it's like making the zigzag effect. So on top of this first polka dot should be the spacing place. So like 10 mesh, 8 mesh, 6 mesh, like this. And on top of this spacing part, there should be polka dots. So it can be zigzag effect instead of all polka dots on the same place. Now I finished this row and I have 9 mesh. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, which is this one. So let's move on to the next row. So chain 4 and turn your work. And as you can see, this is row 17. And as this is odd number row, the direction of working is from here to here. So first we're gonna start row with 8 mesh, and you're gonna move on to 7 filling, which is exactly same as this one, the second row for polka dot. And after 7 filling, we're gonna again doing 8 mesh, and so on. And when you finish this row, you should end the row with 7 filling and no mesh. So when we connect here, this place and this place will be next to each other. Okay, so I came all the way to the end of this row, and I'm gonna finish one more of this filling part. I'm gonna just insert last double crochet on 3rd chain space. Now we have 7 filling of last polka dot, which is exactly same as this one here. So we just finished this 7. So after that, on the 18th, this is the even number row, so we're gonna go this way. And at the end of this row, you should end this row with 1 filling. So when we are connecting this 8 filling part that we did at the beginning of this row would be connecting to this last filling, and it will be 9 fillings in total. So you keep doing this. So 19th row, we will have another 9 mesh, and it will be exactly same as this 18th row. Only the difference would be as 19th row is odd number, so the direction would be this way. So we're gonna start with 1. So I will see you guys when I finish second polka dots. Now I finished this first polka dot and second one, and I also finished another 3 meshed rows. So I'm gonna do 1 more mesh row, and after that, and following exactly same thing for this polka dot all the way, and also doing 4 mesh rows and doing this and so on until you reach your desired length. And at the end of the project, make sure you have the space for 4 mesh or 3 mesh or 5 mesh rows that you started. So that is the basic pattern.